Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan Lugo. Thanks so much for tuning in here on Monday, March 4th. Got some breaking news from ESPN. The Jacksonville Jaguars have reportedly released defensive lineman Foley Fatukasi on his birthday, no less. Rough business the NFL is, but the Jaguars releasing Foley Fatukasi saves them $3.5 million in 2024 cap space, which should get them to about $32 million in cap space, according to overthecap.com. Dead money of over $9 million for Foley Fatukasi, but that is the cost of missing in free agency and trying to move on, right? The Jaguars signed him 2 years ago. Has not been great for him. Why do you release him at this point? Again, the cap savings, but from an on-field perspective, he's been injured often during his 2 years here, and he's only been reasonably effective when fully healthy, which again has been rare. Even when he's been on the field, he's often been dealing with nagging injuries. You look at the Jaguars cap situation again, about $32 million now, according to overthecap.com. They're attempting to not only sign Josh Allen, but also Calvin Ridley, and then also try to have room to make other moves in free agency. They've been flirting with the idea of adding another edge piece. They've been linked to Hassan Reddick and Danielle Hunter, two very talented pass rushers that would complement what they already have. So there's a lot of balls up in the air right now for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This was the first one to drop this week. I have a feeling there's going to be many more. There are a number of potential cap saving moves the Jaguars could make in terms of releasing players. Rayshon Jenkins, Zay Jones, Brandon Sheriff, Cam Robinson, Foye Oluokun, and Darius Williams would all save them a lot by moving on. Now, I don't think the Jaguars will be moving on from Cam Robinson. Trent Baalke kind of dismissed that idea. Or Foye Oluokun. Brandon Sheriff, maybe. Rayshon Jenkins, Zay Jones, maybe. Darius Williams, he's the most obvious one, even though he's one of the most talented players on the team, just based on the contract that he has, right? If the Jaguars decide to release him, they would save $11.5 million against the cap with almost no dead money. So we'll see how this plays out. I would be in favor of keeping Darius Williams, but does he fit the new defensive system to a T? Certainly doesn't look like a prototype press man cornerback. We'll see how all that stuff plays out. But again, Trent Baalke did dismiss the idea of moving on from Cam Robinson, and he's the guy that would save them the most against the cap in 2024 at a savings of over $17 million. So again, with this move, releasing Foley Fatukasi, the Jaguars are set to save $3.5 million against the 2024 salary cap. I do expect some other moves down the pike as well. Certainly, I don't think the Jaguars will move on from all those guys that we talked about, but probably a couple of those names will end up looking for work in this 2024 offseason. It is expected by many that the Jaguars will use the tag on Josh Allen. They ended up starting the negotiations really late. You know, Trent Baalke met with the media in late January, said that they hadn't even begun negotiating with Josh Allen. He has since said that they have begun negotiations and they're working with the agent trying to get something done. But if they are going to franchise tag Josh Allen, it would cost the team $21.3 million if he's designated as a defensive end, or $24.3 million if he's designated as a linebacker, right? So I think obviously the Jaguars are going to try to designate him as a defensive end in that situation, save some money. But if that is the case, I believe now with this move that they would have enough to potentially tag Allen and sign Ridley. Of course, you need more money than just being able to sign those two, right? Like, that's not the only two moves you're going to make this offseason. You're going to have room for your draft class, all sorts of other signings, maybe not big signings, but I do believe that if the Jaguars, if their main goal this week, is to get Josh Allen and Calvin Ridley secured for the future, I think they have the ability to do that now. The other issue here is, of course, with Calvin Ridley, if you sign him before the start of the new league year next week, you end up giving a second-round pick to the Atlanta Falcons instead of a third-round pick. Trent Baalke at the Combine last week, he did say he does not care as much about the pick. He cares about the player, right? He wants to have Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville. At least that's what he's saying publicly. So there are so many moving parts here. But I do think that the Jaguars, they now have the flexibility to get cap compliant and tag Josh Allen and sign Calvin Ridley before the start of the new league year if they want, or at least get a deal in place for Calvin Ridley. And a deal for Calvin Ridley, now that Mike Evans is off the market, it looks like Michael Pittman's going to be franchise tagged. And again, the franchise tag window closes tomorrow, Tuesday, March 5th at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So you're going to find out if Josh Allen's franchise tagged or even maybe Calvin Ridley tomorrow, right? Obviously, the Jaguars, like I mentioned, they need to make more than 2 moves. But if they want to get these 2 guys secured and they don't feel like they can sign Josh Allen to a long-term deal before the new league year starts, and then they use the tag, I think that they could afford to do both of those moves, placing the franchise tag on Josh Allen and then signing Calvin Ridley to a deal. I think that they could afford a deal under the cap of at least $25 million per year. And again, that would require them to eventually move on from some of the other pieces that are potential cap cuts, right? But I think right now, sitting at about $32 million after the Foley Fatukasi cut, again, with the franchise tag being about $21 million for Josh Allen at defensive end, that means they have about $10 million to play with. I think if you have a $25 million per year deal, the Jaguars, they usually structure these contracts where the first year cap hit is only about 40% of the average annual value. And so if it's $25 million per year, first year you're talking about a cap hit of about $10 million. And I think the Jaguars could afford to do that and be cap compliant. But again, in order to continue to fill out the rest of the roster, they would need to potentially make several more moves in terms of cap saving moves. But look, Jaguars at the defensive tackle position, you have Devon Hamilton, who you love when healthy, right? You're hoping you can get him back to full strength. Obviously dealt with the non-football back health issue last year. You hope you get him back to full strength and you move forward with him as kind of a stalwart for you. You also have Roy Robertson Harris, who he will be in Jacksonville this year, but I would assume it would be his last year. You don't have any cap savings on him right now, so you got to keep him around. It does not make sense to move on. He can contribute at a reasonably high level for you, is your hope in 2024. Jeremiah Ledbetter, who did some nice things for you, is a restricted free agent. Angelo Blackson is a free agent. Adam Gotsis is under contract for 2024, but he's a potential cap cut too if the Jaguars want to move in a different direction. They would save over $1 million by moving on from him with very, very little dead money. Tyler Lacey, who you drafted last year, maybe he can take some reps inside for you, but he's not really one of these big hulking defensive tackle types. He's really more of a big defensive end. Trayvon Walker can obviously move inside and rush from the interior and clear passing situations. I don't think you want to jam him up on the inside as a run defender too often. You want him playing the edge as a run defender and then kicking inside to rush the passer. But the Jaguars, I think that they must improve around Devon Hamilton and Roy Robertson Harris up front. This defensive interior, there are a lot of potential free agent defensive tackles. There's obviously some guys in the draft that they could target. The 2 guys at the top of the draft considered likely first-round picks that I'm a huge fan of, when you talk about Byron Murphy and Johnny Newton, both of those guys have short arms, so they don't really match up with Trent Baalke's requirements when it comes to arm length for line play, which he usually is like 33 inches or bust, right? Those guys both come in under 33 inches with their arm length. So we'll see how it plays out with the Jaguars. Again, I do think there's a lot of quality free agent defensive tackles to help them out, but I think at this point, they're really just concerned with making sure they can keep Josh Allen and Calvin Ridley, figuring out how to do that. We'll see how it plays out here down the stretch here, but really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. You can also check out genjag.com/shop, pick up some new Duval gear. Y'all have a good one.